Today's video is a US election update. I've been meaning to do a video for a few days now, just talking about where we are in terms of the election. If you've been following me since I've been writing, I've done about maybe 7 or 8 episodes talking about chapters. That was a writing piece, talking about different events. So starting from the primary season, which was actually very short on both sides because Trump basically had no opponents. Biden definitely had no opponents, and that was wrapped up pretty quickly. So moving from that up until where we are, maybe not today, but a few months ago, around the assassination. So I did a podcast. I wrote a piece after Trump's first assassination attempt, where I did a kind of fictional piece talking about what would have happened if Trump had been assassinated and where that would have taken, the race as it were, and I guess what that meant for America, the world, and other things like that more generally. And that was probably the last piece I did on the election. But I guess we're about a month and a few weeks, maybe about 6 weeks away from the election. The election is November 4th, I believe. And so obviously a lot of things have moved on since then. Trump recently suffered another assassination attempt told by the FBI. Um, I was going to do a prediction today to talk about what I think about the race and who I think is going to win. But in light of obviously this very significant event, I'll probably hold off on predictions and just talk more generally about what's been happening in the race so far, where we have it, and maybe hint about what I think about the different strategies, but not actually picking who I think will win based on an educated guess, of course. I think it's worth pointing out that after the first assassination attempt, most people, including myself to an extent, felt like Trump was going to have an unassailable lead. At that time, he just come off the first debate with Biden, where everyone's been exposed to the fact that Biden was senile, which again I covered almost 6 months before that. So again, check my blog. Like I said, I'm always ahead of these issues. But everyone assumed that Trump would run away with it after that assassination attempt. But the Democrats, I guess, to try and save their election chances, moved Biden out of the way and installed Kamala Harris. And since then, again, people still felt like because she really had no substance, she doesn't have any substance. She's a creation of moneyed interests. Trump would just win pretty easily, but it hasn't really quite manifested that way. And I think for Trump, Kamala Harris is a bit of a weird character because she doesn't really seem to have any strong positions. Biden's been in politics for, 40, 50 years, so you can find many tangible things to attack him on. Hillary Clinton was similar, but Kamala Harris is someone that, she hasn't risen because of any strong issue apart from an identity, being a woman of color, which she's ambiguously played as being both Indian and African American, and then also just being a woman, which is, being able to play to the Roe v. Wade and the abortion rights and those type of issues. So it's kind of hard to pin her down, which ironically was actually one of Trump's strengths when he came in, to political life, is that he'd given money to Republicans, to Democrats. He was kind of a superstar celebrity figure, but he didn't really seem to have any defined positions. And one of the things Trump does really well, much to the chagrin of many of his opponents, is that Trump is a shapeshifter. I actually wrote a piece about it a few months back, in that Trump can be everything to everyone. Some people will believe and tell you that Trump actually hates Netanyahu because there was one time where Trump shook his hand and Trump had a disgusted look on his face. While other people simultaneously believe, because Trump has said, if the Jews in America, if you don't support me, you're not really Jewish, that Trump is going to allow Israel to occupy the entire West Bank and, annex the whole of Gaza. So Trump somehow will have these two people that hold, seemingly, contradictory views in his camp because he doesn't really get pinned down on one position. And that's something Kamala Harris is basically being able to adopt. She is also not being able to be pinned down on one position. So some people believe she's sympathetic to the Gaza cause, whatever that means, even though she's in the administration that's giving the most money and weapons to Israel to commit its current genocide in Gaza. Whereas simultaneously, other people believe, given that she has in the past done many actions to show that she supports Israel, and goes beyond, many moderate people in supporting Israel, that she's going to support Israel and give it whatever it needs. Also, given that she's in an administration that's doing that right now, why would you not believe that? So that's been something that's been quite interesting about Kamala Harris. And you've seen in the attempts of Trump to kind of oppose her, go against her, he's ended up making himself look a bit foolish because he's starting to cling on to stuff that you can tell are not really genuine. What Trump really wants to do is give her, a nickname and call her that at every campaign event and make his supporters laugh and have great fun with it and just, say whatever he wants. Make fun of the fact that she's had, extramarital affairs, and some people have perceived her to have slept her way to the top. Whether or not you believe that or not, it does seem like the start of her career. She had some relationships with some very powerful figures that launched her political career. That's the kind of thing Trump would love to talk about. But his advisors now, given that a lot of them are, Republican Party operatives and, standard political consultants, are telling him that's going to play badly with women voters. That's going to seem sexist or misogynistic. Don't go there. Just talk about other stuff. So now he's left with talking about stuff like she's a communist. Like, come on, this is so lame. Like, this is not entertaining anyone. Doesn't seem believable. Doesn't make any sense. She's a Marxist. All the things that clearly no one seriously would believe about Kamala Harris, given that she has, gotten so many millions in campaign donations her whole career, and she was essentially installed by, the rich and powerful interests that want the Democratic Party to win. So, what's communist or Marxist about that? It's a very lame attack. And so, because of an inability to kind of pin her down and, a scattered form of attack, Trump is actually kind of losing. He's down in most polls, and in the recent debates, most people, even people that don't really support Kamala Harris, kind of had her winning because it was very close to call. But Trump didn't really seem to, again, because he couldn't pin her down on anything, he didn't really seem to have a strong enough performance that would suggest that he won the debate. And because Trump can't do the things that made him popular in the first place, a large part of Trump's appeal was the fact that he was entertaining. Even people that hate Trump will tell you that he's funny. He says things that just make you laugh. His mannerisms, the random things he does. Trump was a king of the one-liner, but now he can't really do that anymore because he's been advised by people who are telling him to keep it on the straight and narrow, and he's become, in many regards, an establishment politician. Trump is a former president and the current nominee of the Republican Party. So when you're in that position, it's very difficult for you to play the outsider card. And when the first assassination attempt happened, that was something that was maybe perhaps going to help him try and boost those credentials. And he can go on again about they don't want me to come in and save you guys from their tyranny, and they're all against me. They all want me dead. But given that the media obviously want him so desperately to lose, he hadn't been able to use that as much as he would have if it had happened the other way around. If it was Kamala Harris or Biden that was almost assassinated, you'd hear a lot of conversation about what Trump has done to promote violence, the fact that his supporters are extreme and far right and alt right and all these kind of things. But because it was Trump, it was very quickly swept under the rug, and he didn't really enjoy much of a boost from that, apart from some very impressive memes and funny tweets that we enjoyed for a few days. After that, that whole bump that dissipated, and he just went back to the very conventional race. And Kamala Harris has kind of been winning by basically not doing much. And so what's interesting about Kamala Harris's strategy is that she's essentially following the Hillary 2016 strategy. But even though that strategy has been much criticized, Hillary came very close to winning. She probably didn't win just because of her sheer unpopularity, but her strategy was essentially stay out of the limelight, let Trump be in the media spotlight where a lot of people can criticize him and find fault in what he does. Some people will like him, some people will don't, but I'll just stay out and just let him kind of harm himself. There's a kind of political consultant dogma, which a lot of you that don't follow politics might not be aware of, but essentially goes as like, if your opponent is in the spotlight negatively, do not like put yourself in the spotlight, because now you're taking that negative attention from him and you're potentially bringing it onto yourself. Now, this was the plan in 2016, but it worked for Trump because Trump was so popular and entertaining that even people that hated him wanted to see him. They wanted to watch CNN, MSNBC, all the ABC News, all the platforms and channels that didn't really like Trump. They would still broadcast his campaign speeches live because they knew viewers wanted to see that. It was entertaining. I would watch it. Trump is funny. He would just go off the cuff, walking around, just making the audience laugh. It was like a stand-up show. So she had essentially estimated that that would make him unpopular. And while it made him unpopular amongst, the liberals and the people that, were, disgusted by him, dissing immigrants and dissing disabled people and dissing this person and that person, that also made him his reach much wider. Places like in rural America that had never heard of him, they were starting to know more about him, know more about his views. Obviously, you mix that in with stuff like they want to take your guns away and they want to protect, pro life and things that they really want to hear. So, you know, there's also the other counter to that, which is like all publicity is good publicity, and that's what Trump was able to enjoy in 2016 because the more people see you and the more people hear about you, even people that don't like you can promote you because their anger and disdain at what you're saying will make your message reach other people who will eventually like you, and so that's how you'll be able to capture the audience. Whereas now, the media is a lot more disciplined in their approach, and they, for example, they don't cover Trump speeches live. They barely broadcast what he says. If they do, they'll just show a snippet and then they'll talk about it in the studio for 20 minutes where they're heavily criticizing and pointing out, the some or many falsehoods that he's espoused. So it's a lot more difficult for Trump to kind of get his message out to basically to new voters, which is, the battleground people, the people that are kind of swaying one way or the other. Those are the people he has to reach. And he's kind of been underestimated the fact that the appeal of being an outsider as one off, he's not doing as well as, he typically would have, especially if he was running against someone more establishment like Joe Biden, who has, a 40, 50-year history to fall back on, whereas Kamala Harris, a lot of, in many regards, her political career is just as empty in terms of achievements, and tenure as Trump. And so they're kind of evenly matched in that way. And so again, many people mocked Hillary for adopting that strategy of hiding herself away and letting Trump take all the spotlight. But if it wasn't due to her sheer unpopularity and the fact that the FBI director came out, a few weeks before the election and said basically she committed a massive crime, I should have charged her, but I'm not going to charge her. So I'm just going to give this speech which ruins her political career instead. She probably would have won. It came down to two or three states, as it always does in America. And, he won those states like Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and she didn't. And he became president. So given that Kamala Harris doesn't have the same unpopularity that Hillary Clinton does, it's very possible that this strategy might work for her. And so far it's been working. Her and Trump are basically neck and neck in the battleground states. Some polls have her winning some states, other polls have him winning some states. These are states that essentially are, they call them purple states, which are the real contested ones. So you have your states like New York, California, Texas, Oklahoma, which just go to one side or the other basically every year. And then you have the middle ones that are more, I guess, diverse in terms of voter base: Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, which go either way depending on, basically, they kind of swing the election. And so that's where the real battle is. So when you see the national polls, it doesn't really matter because the Democrats just have more people in terms of sheer population. So they almost always going to win the popular vote. But in those kind of purple states, they're called, that's where the real battle is. And so right now it's very close, and Kamala Harris has a very good chance of winning. Ultimately, we're gonna see what happens in terms of how the second assassination attempt. It doesn't seem to be as hair raising as the first one. I don't think this person got as close to Trump as the first one did, because in the first one Trump was actually hit and he could have, actually could have died. But it doesn't really seem like this one was as dramatic as that one. And a lot of people aren't really, basically it's one off. The appeal is one off in terms of, they want to kill me because I'm trying to save you, because and you can imagine the media is gonna, maybe suppress is the wrong word, but they're definitely gonna help Trump by playing it up to be like a serious attempt in his life. They're gonna say stuff that suggests that nothing to see here, it was just a minor thing. And so I don't predict it'll have much of an effect on the race moving forward. But I guess we have to wait and see. I'll probably do predictions in a few weeks, maybe when we get into October. Obviously, to make the prediction valid and kind of interesting. If I do it too close, then it seems like you can already kind of see the tea leaves and see who's going to win. But I'll make sure I do it far enough away, and I'll give my reasons for why I think one person or the other will win, and I'll let you guys know about that. So I think I'll keep this update pretty short. My last video was, about 20 minutes long. If you haven't seen that one, that was on Lucy Letby. Very fascinating true crime case from the UK for my non UK viewers. Do go and check that out. But yeah, I'll leave this one here for now, and thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you guys on the next One World Update.